Okay, yeah, let's talk about what do we have here. What's the difference between general somatic efferent, general visceral efferent, general somatic efferent, and general visceral efferent? It's all very confusing to understand all these terms and to differentiate between them. Yeah, I can understand why. Does it all sound very similar? They do have very distinct functions, each of these. So they have very similar functions. Yeah, so it can get very confusing, all of these. Does it sound very similar? But they're actually quite distinctive between all of these phrases. The key is to break them all down one by one, okay, and understand what do the words actually mean, and then taking it from there. As first of all, I think it's very important to differentiate between somatic and visceral, and then look into if each of them is either efferent or efferent. Determining first efferent and efferent, very basic, but is a key to understanding all of this. Efferent meaning input into the body, as in, and when I say into the body, I actually, people often say that, into the body. What they're actually referring to is a central nervous system. So think of it like a computer. You got an input coming in, the computer analyzes it and then gives you an output. As in, you press a key, the computer recognizes that you pressed the key, and it gives you an output on the screen of so-and-so letter is pressed. Very similar fashion. So something has to come in, get processed, and then the appropriate response coming out. So efferent means an input coming in to the central nervous system. Efferent means a response or a motor command coming back out for a response, or generally a function or a task for the body to do. So let's break this down. Okay, so we got the general somatic efferent, and another term to really understand is somatic, which means generalized, as in a general cell of the body. Not the key distinction being not referring to a gamete cell, as in not a sperm cell or an egg. So being a diploid, it contains any cell containing 2 copies of each chromosome. So when they say general somatic efferent, they just mean any cell that's giving an input into the central nervous body, or relaying, or becoming the starting point of the relay of the information into the central nervous system. So when we're talking about general somatic efferent, you're generally talking about perception. Perception of pain, temperature, touch, vibration, that sort of thing. So that's what the general somatic efferent means. As in, let's get a diagram up. I think maybe it's better to bring the diagram up and explain this with an example, because I don't think that these are quite useful at the moment. So let's move these out and let's move into just a simple example, something like this. Okay, we've got the brain here, we've got this representing the spinal cord, so part of the central nervous system, and these 2 different colors here, the blue being the sensory neuron or the efferent part, something that's been given an input into the body. So you've got a sensory receptor here, a somatic cell, detecting by its receptors an input into the body, the cell, where the information gets relayed through the sensory neuron right into the spinal cord, a synapse in here, and then moving up the spinal cord to the central nervous system, the brain, getting processed in the brain, and the red line representing the motor neuron as information relayed from the brain or the central nervous system through the spinal cord, through a peripheral nerve into what they call the motor nerve ending, or we're going to move on to the next, the general somatic efferent. So that's what you would call this. So general somatic efferent, general somatic efferent with the E. So that I'm hoping that explains that. So then what's the difference between a general somatic efferent and general visceral efferent? The difference is just in the name itself. Efferent, obviously, it means now an input into the central nervous system. The difference being where it's coming from. The general somatic efferent means it's coming from a generalized cell throughout the body, not referring to the gamete. When I say general visceral efferent, it means a sensory input from some sort of viscera, some sort of organ. So you got the general, so then in a very similar fashion, let's give an example of that as well. So a general somatic efferent would then be, the general somatic efferent would be like motor innervation to this nerve, but the general visceral efferent would be something like motor innervation to a viscera. So you're talking about something like glands, cardiac muscle, and it can get quite confusing sometimes. Or a trick question can be in the exam: what's the difference between general somatic efferent and general visceral efferent in relation to muscle? So a general somatic efferent would be, motor innervation. Well, but they both be motor innervation, but general somatic efferent will be motor innervation to something like skeletal muscle, something that you can control, But the general visceral efferent is something that's beyond the voluntary control. something that happens throughout your body without any input or conscious input, something like motor innervation to the smooth muscles. You can't, control that. That's based on its own little reflexes. I know it sounds very complicated, but if you watch this video again and review what I mean, it will hopefully come clearer or make a bit more sense. There is a special thing that sometimes pops up in some textbooks, which puts another category in all of this, called what they call the special efferent, which refers to input into the central nervous system from your special senses or the special functions, and this normally refers to balance, hearing, smell, taste, vision. So if you're going to break it down, you would probably break it down into something like a table where you have the functional component and what training nerves are responsible. If you work your way down the table, it would make sense. Actually, let me just get the table up on the screen. Okay, yeah, something a bit like this. So let's take that to the side. So over here, you'll see that it's got a nice little summary table of the training nerves and what category you can actually put this into. So you're looking at something like the special efferent. You can see it's all related to organs with special inputs into the body. Training nerve number 1 relating to the olfactory nerve in relation to your smell function. You got training nerve number 2, your optic nerve, referring to your vision. You got training nerve number 7 in relation to your taste. You got training nerve number 8, your hearing, so forth. It just goes on like that. But if the key is not to learn this parafascia, because it get quite confusing. You'll see that there'll be some overlap as well, because some nerves have both efferent and efferent compartments. For example, you're talking about a good example would be some of that training nerve number 7 that you'll see in a general somatic efferent, and you'll also see in a general visceral efferent. So I'm hoping that made sense. If it didn't make sense, I'm going to try and put some sort of summary in the description below, or if there's anything that doesn't make sense, just drop it in the comments and I might even make another video making this a bit clearer. I don't think that was a bit too clear in this video. But yeah, let me know what you think. If any other questions, let me know, and then we'll take it from there.